My name is Sienna Hayes. I'm 30 years old. And what happened that night wasn't sudden. It wasn't random. It was something that had been building for years. Slowly, quietly, repeatedly. And the worst part? I didn't even recognize it at first. Growing up, nothing was ever taken away from me directly. That's what made it harder to see. Because technically, everything was still there. My birthdays still happened. My achievements were still acknowledged. My milestones were still mentioned. But somehow, they never stayed mine. A birthday would turn into a discussion about someone else. An achievement would become a comparison. A moment that should have been about me would slowly shift, and the attention would move. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that you couldn't call it out. But you could feel it. I got a call at 11:42 a.m. Hi, just confirming. Are you canceling tonight's booking? I paused. Canceling? I asked. Yes, the manager said. We received a request this morning. From your mother. And in that moment, everything made sense. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't confusion. It was planned, because my event was supposed to start in just a few hours. The venue, gone. The setup, stopped. Everything, falling apart. And the worst part? Everyone believed it. That it was bad luck, bad timing, something out of my control. When I arrived that evening, people were already there, confused, waiting. And my parents? Calm, explaining everything like nothing was wrong. We tried to fix it. It just didn't work out. But I didn't react. Because while they were busy canceling everything, they didn't realize one thing. They were looking in the wrong place. So I just smiled and said, that wasn't the plan. And that's when everything changed. If you enjoy stories where smart moves beat loud reactions, make sure you're subscribed. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from right now? I read every single comment. My younger brother Ethan was different. Not in a bad way. Just positioned differently. If he did something average, it became impressive. If I did something impressive, it became expected. And I noticed something very early. He didn't have to earn attention. I did. And even when I earned it, it didn't last. At first, I told myself it was normal. Every family has dynamics. Every household has patterns. But over time, patterns stop feeling accidental. They start feeling designed. And I realized something uncomfortable. It wasn't about what I did. It was about how much space I was allowed to take. I didn't argue. I didn't confront anyone. I adjusted. Quietly. I stopped expecting full support. Stopped waiting for recognition. But most importantly, I stopped sharing things too early. Because every time I did, something would go wrong. Plans would shift. Details would get confused. Timing would suddenly fall apart. Too often to be coincidence. By the time I turned 30, I had built something completely on my own. No help, no shortcuts, a branding and event design business. Small projects at first, then bigger clients, then consistent work. Late nights fixing details no one else would notice, redoing concepts until they felt right, saying no to easy money to protect quality. And slowly, it became something real, something stable, something I was finally proud of. That's when I made a decision. For the first time, I wasn't going to keep it quiet. I was going to celebrate it, properly. Not just a small announcement, not just a post online. A real launch event. Something people could attend, something they could experience, something that said, this is mine. I booked a modern venue downtown. Clean space, minimal design, controlled lighting. Every element had a purpose. The layout, the timing, the guest list, clients, potential collaborators, people who actually understood what I had built. Even the way people would enter the room was planned. Because this wasn't just an event, it was positioning. And then I told my parents, not everything, just enough. The date, the venue, the importance, and almost immediately, they got involved. Too involved. My mother started asking specific questions: vendor contacts, setup timing, guest coordination. My father followed. Do you want us to help manage things? We can make it easier for you. On the surface, it sounded supportive, but something about it felt familiar. The kind of familiar you recognize too late. A caterer called me one afternoon. Hi, just confirming, your guest count dropped? I paused. I didn't change it. Then the lighting vendor. Your setup time moved to evening? Again, not my decision. And that's when it started. Not loudly, not obviously, but clearly enough that I couldn't ignore it anymore. At first I thought it was miscommunication. Then I thought maybe vendors were mixing things up. But when the third call came, I stopped guessing, because the pattern felt too familiar. And that's when I realized something important. This wasn't happening around me. It was happening through someone. Didn't confront anyone. Didn't accuse. Didn't question. Because I already knew how that would go. Instead, I did something different. I stepped back, looked at everything clearly, and made one quiet decision. I moved the entire event. Not partially, not temporarily, completely. And the part no one realized? While they were preparing to stop everything, I had already made sure there was nothing left for them to stop. What they didn't know was that this wasn't my first time dealing with something like this. Weeks earlier, without telling anyone, I had placed a soft hold on a second venue. Not because I expected something to go wrong, but because I had learned something over time. If something matters enough, you don't leave it exposed. The second location was smaller, more private, more controlled, and most importantly, untouched. The moment I understood what was happening, I didn't panic. I didn't rush. I just started moving things. Quietly. One call at a time. The caterer. Shifted. Lighting. Updated. Core guests. Personally informed. Not everyone. Only the people who actually mattered. The rest stayed connected to the original plan. From that point on, there were two versions of the same night. The one they were controlling, and the one I was actually building. Same purpose, same celebration, but completely different outcomes. The version they had access to looked real, felt real, but it wasn't where anything important would happen. And the most important part? I didn't stop them. I let everything continue. Every change they made, every cancellation, every adjustment. I allowed it. Because the more they controlled that version, the further they moved away from mine. The closer we got to the event, the more confident they became. My mother started speaking like everything was under control, like she was managing it, like this entire moment belonged to her now. My father supported it. Of course he did. Because from their perspective, everything was going exactly as planned. 2 days before the event, they made the move I was expecting. The venue was suddenly unavailable. A scheduling conflict, a last-minute issue, something no one could fix. Everything sounded clean, believable, perfectly timed, because this wasn't about fixing anything. It was about ending it. Messages started going out. Guests became confused. Plans became unclear. People didn't know where to go or what was happening. And my parents? Calm. Too calm. Explaining everything like this was just bad luck. Like they had tried everything. Like this had simply happened. And then I saw it. That same expression. the one I had seen before. Not obvious, not dramatic, just controlled satisfaction. The kind of smile people have when something goes exactly the way they expected. That evening, people still showed up to the original venue, standing outside, checking their phones, looking for answers, and my parents were already there, positioned perfectly, explaining everything. We tried to fix it. It just didn't work out. These things happen. And slowly, everyone started looking at me. They were waiting for something specific. A reaction, frustration, embarrassment, a loss of control. Something that would confirm everything they believed about me, that I wasn't ready, that I couldn't handle pressure, that I needed them. But I didn't react. Not the way they expected. I didn't question them, didn't argue, didn't explain anything. I just stood there, looked at everyone, and smiled. And then I said it, calm, clear. That wasn't the plan. And for a second, no one understood what I meant. But the tone was different. Because it didn't match the situation. It didn't sound like someone who just lost everything. It sounded like someone who hadn't. And that's the moment. Everything shifted. Because while they thought they had just ended my event, they had actually done something else. They had revealed something. Something they didn't even realize yet. And what happened next? No one in that room was prepared for. At this point, what would you do? Would you confront them? Or stay quiet and watch it play out? Tell me honestly in the comments. The moment I said, that wasn't the plan, something shifted. Not loudly, not instantly, but enough that people stopped reacting and started paying attention. My father looked at me, confused. Not completely, but just enough to realize he wasn't in control of this moment anymore. What do you mean? He asked. Simple, direct, but different now. Because for the first time that night, he wasn't leading the conversation. He was trying to understand it. I didn't rush to explain, because moments like this aren't about speed. They're about timing. So instead of answering, I looked around. At the guests, at the confusion, at the tension they had created. And then I asked one question. Is everyone here? My mother stepped in immediately. Yes, she said. Everyone we invited is here. Confident, controlled, trying to close the moment, trying to regain direction. I shook my head. Slightly. Calm. Not exactly. And that's when the room changed again. Because now, this wasn't confusion anymore. This was structure. Something planned. I reached into my pocket, took out my phone. Not quickly, not dramatically, just naturally. Like this was always part of what would happen next. I unlocked it, opened one screen, and turned it toward them. At first, no one reacted, because no one understood what they were looking at. Then someone leaned closer, then another, and slowly, the room went quiet. A live feed, a real space, filled. People moving, talking, waiting. A clean setup, soft lighting, my branding on the walls, my work on display, exactly the way it was supposed to be. I didn't explain everything. I didn't need to. I just said, this is where the event is. That's it. No defense, no emotion, because the truth was already visible. No one spoke, because there was nothing left to question. No confusion, no assumptions, just realization. And it spread slowly, from one person to another, to the entire room. Someone finally said it. This has been happening the whole time, but they weren't asking me, they were looking at my parents. And that's when everything flipped. My father tried to respond. We should go there. Quick. Reactive. Trying to step back into control. But it didn't sound strong anymore, it sounded late. My mother stepped in. There must be some confusion. But no one followed her this time, because this wasn't something you could explain away. It wasn't a story. It was proof. Right there. In front of everyone. She looked at the phone again. Then at me. And for the first time, there was no calculation in her expression. No strategy. No control. Just realization. That whatever she had planned didn't just fail. It missed completely. And that's when everything changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, but completely. Because in that moment, it stopped being about what they had done and started being about what they couldn't control anymore. And once that shifted, there was no way to take it back. No one reacted loudly. There was no argument, no confrontation, but something far more important happened. The energy in the room changed. The same people who were confused before were now watching differently, not looking for answers anymore, looking for truth. A few minutes earlier, everyone was listening to my parents, following their explanation, trying to understand what went wrong. But now, no one was looking at them the same way. Because once doubt enters a room, it doesn't stay in one place. It spreads. Someone stepped slightly away from my mother. Not obviously, just enough. Then someone else. Then another. No one said anything, but the distance started forming. Quietly. My father looked around, not panicked, but aware, because the reactions he expected weren't happening. No one was agreeing. No one was supporting. No one was reinforcing the story. And that silence said more than anything else could. My mother tried again. It's probably just a misunderstanding. But this time, her words didn't land, because explanations only work when people still believe you. And no one was relying on her version anymore. They had already seen the truth. Someone asked a simple question. Why wasn't this mentioned earlier? And it wasn't directed at me. It was directed at them. And that's when everything flipped completely. Because now, they weren't managing the situation anymore. They were part of it. The room didn't get louder. It got quieter. More controlled. More aware. People weren't reacting emotionally. They were observing, analyzing, and slowly creating distance. In that moment, there were two versions of reality in the room. The one they had tried to create, and the one I had already built. One was falling apart. The other was already working. And everyone could see the difference. If you've ever been in a moment like this, where the truth didn't need to be explained, just shown, would you have stayed calm like this, or reacted? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. We should just go there, he said again. More firmly this time, trying to regain direction, trying to pull things back. But it didn't feel like leadership. It felt like recovery. And there's a difference. No one followed immediately. No one rushed. Because now, people weren't waiting to be led. They were deciding for themselves. And that's when you know. Control is gone. My mother looked at me again. But this time, there was nothing behind it. No plan. No adjustment. No strategy. Just realization. That whatever she tried to control was never actually hers. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. I just looked at everyone and said one simple thing. If you want to make it, we should leave now. Not a question. Not a request. Just direction. And that's when the final decision happened. Not from me. From them. Because at that point, everyone in that room had a choice. Stay in a moment that had already failed, or move towards something that was already working. And what they chose changed everything. If this story made you think differently, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you want more stories like this, there's another one on your screen right now.